I don't know about you, but under most circumstances I quite dislike it when a term that has meant one thing for ages is suddenly co-opted to mean something else entirely. There are a few exceptions, obviously, but for the most part I prefer that words retain their original meaning. For example, I actually do remember when I was first introduced to the word gay. I was never told a damn thing about homosexuality because I was about 6 or 7. The word just meant a certain type of joy or happiness. Then, without warning, suddenly you couldn't use the word without conjuring up images of men fucking. And don't even get me started on whether or not the word gay can apply solely to men, or if lesbians can be called gays too. I have never gotten a, forgive the pun, straight answer out of anyone on that one. Now, I have no problem with homosexuality, obviously, but I admit I can get a bit pedantic about language, and I like being able to use a term confident that it means one thing and not another. I like being understood. So when words or expressions change their meaning, occasionally with little or no warning, it can sometimes cause problems. Another good example is that apparently using Oriental to describe people from a certain part of Asia is now considered insulting. I never got that memo, had always heard Oriental used without a trace of bigotry or discrimination, that it was purely descriptive, yet found myself walking into a minefield one day with that one. I'd never heard it was an insulting term, and never intended it that way in the least, but some people quite dislike it. Who knew? Of course, now I don't have a way to distinguish the Japanese or the Chinese from the Indians the way we can distinguish, say, Scandinavians from other Europeans, unless there's a term I don't know about. It sure would be nice to have a way of explicitly indicating that there is no judgment call intended in one's word choice, that one's vocabulary is limited and no offense is intended should the wrong word be used. One such term that's been bugging me recently is ground zero. With all the talk of the World Trade Center and the so-called Ground Zero Mosque, which is nothing of the kind, it's obvious that the term Ground Zero has been co-opted to mean the 9/11 World Trade Center site. You can't say Ground Zero now without meaning the 9/11 site, unless you specify what you're talking about. This bothers me. When I first heard the term Ground Zero, it meant the epicenter of a nuclear detonation. A bomb drops, and its point of impact is Ground Zero. Look it up. That's what the term means. It can also be applied to earthquakes and epidemics, pretty much any disaster really, but it originates with the Manhattan Project, the dropping of nuclear bombs on Japan in World War II. A 1946 New York Times report on the destruction of Hiroshima defined Ground Zero as being that part of the ground situated immediately under an exploding bomb, especially an atomic one. But now Ground Zero pretty much exclusively refers to the World Trade Center site, though to hear some people tell it all of Manhattan is Ground Zero, or all of America is Ground Zero, or Ground Zero is a certain block radius around the World Trade Center. But basically Ground Zero is just a 9/11 thing. And that kind of bugs me. Probably because now we automatically associate Ground Zero with 9/11. And you know how I feel about people running on automatic. Instead, please, think. Please take the time to rate this video. And hey, if you dig what I do, subscribe. You might also enjoy my webcomic, The Adventures of Kinneara Baxter. You'll find a link in the info bar. Flagga-blug gore fleebus. Nog seerok. Fall blug denoy.